30 another month, and go back. And that was we got to take, we took tests May and November. Twice a year. You really don't, because really, there's nothing, if anything ever comes up on that top that I've got weather, it's going to come down on that anyway.
Our network connection's not real good here, so it may be a little bit, we'll go for what we got there.
Normally, if you make problems before they spend their money, they have to go through a process or generally what they're ordering through. I had it to do all.
Somebody gave them to my son. They were just graduating from up here. They go with the color. Okay, guys, we're fixing to get started in a couple of minutes, but before we do, we're being videoed. Excuse me, we're being videoed, so when we do talk, let's talk loud enough. You know, let's not whisper. Let's talk loud enough where it picks up our voices, okay? We certainly, I probably talk loud anyway. One more minute, we'll get started.
Your yes for the first 5 minutes. You're a board member.
We haven't gotten this far, but we've still got a lot.
They were over there yesterday when I stepped out.
Okay, guys, it's 5:30. Let's call this meeting to order. We'll start with our roll call. Buddy, Marvin, Martha, and myself, we're all here. Do we have anyone that wants to speak in open forum? I guess not. Okay, we've reappointed Sandy to her position on the board, so we need to swear her in. And Deborah's going to take care of that. Okay, y'all know that we're in search of a new auditor. And so Deborah Whitman's here with us from BKD, and she's going to do a presentation on what she can do for us as an auditor in our cost report.
Thank you. I don't want to block any of your air. Am I okay here? I have honestly can tell you I have never been filmed before. So I'm a tad nervous about that, to be very honest with you. I want to tell you just a tad about how I became here, okay? My name is Deborah Whitman, and I am currently a director with BKD, and we are a large regional firm, but we specialize in healthcare. And I have a fair amount of slides that I want to kind of go through with you. But I was a speaker at a critical access conference in San Antonio, early June, perhaps, of which Andy, Deborah, and a few others, Billy, a few others from the hospital attended. And I spoke that day for about an hour and 15 minutes. And my presentation that day was about reimbursement as a critical access hospital. And I went through a laundry list of different things during that presentation, telling administrators and CFOs things that they should know about their hospital. And after I spoke, Andy came up to me and he said, Deborah, we don't know all of those things about our hospital. And we sat at a table outside of the conference and we visited for a little while. And we got to know each other a little bit, and that's where all of this started. What can you help us do? And so what I would like to be able to tell you is some of the things about myself, my firm, and what we can do or do to help small community rural hospitals, because you are a very typical example of the clients that we have, and you'll see in just a minute. So, what I came here to talk about is a little bit about BKD, which is my firm. What can we do for you, and why healthcare is so important on what we can do for you. And then I'd like to make sure anybody has any questions. Number one, at any time, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. There's no such thing as waiting till the end, but certainly we can ask questions. But I'm going to go back just a little bit more about me. I get pulled and tugged at times, whether I'm a small firm or whether I'm a large firm, and I will tell you why. I was with a firm called Parrish Moody & Fikes, and many years ago we did work here at this hospital for you. And it's been 10 years ago or more. Is that right, Deborah? More than 10 years ago. Okay. I was with Parrish Moody & Fikes and Bill Parrish for 19 years. We were a very small firm in Texas. And 1 year ago, July 1st, we merged into BKD. And so we became what we would consider now a large firm. But we are a large firm located in Little Waco, Texas, doing all the same things that we used to do. So I personally get pulled and tugged. I come from a small firm atmosphere, and now we're a larger firm. Okay? To tell you a little bit about BKD, we are one of the 10th largest CPA firms in the United States. So we're big. We have 1,800 personnel, people that work for us, located in 12 different states, comprising 30 different offices. In Texas, we have we have Houston, we have San Antonio, and we have Dallas. And part of Dallas becomes Waco. And so our office is in Waco, just like it always was. Okay? This is kind of a picture. All the states in red are the states that we have offices in. Within any given day, I have the ability to pull resources from Tulsa, Indianapolis, Springfield, Missouri. There are healthcare experts in those three offices that I have the ability to call and get information from at any time. Those are our three biggest healthcare offices within the firm. Waco is kind of the leading healthcare office in Texas. So our little firm. And when you look at our Texas hospitals, Waco serves all the hospitals that are represented by those red stars. I don't know what happens in technology. Those used to be blue, and then one day they're red. You know how the hospital signs are all blue. I have those blue, and now they're red. So I don't know why I have to say red now. But we represent and take care of almost 100 community rural hospitals just like yourselves. Okay, we have about 30, somewhere between 30 and 35 critical access hospitals, just like you, scattered throughout Texas. So when I refer to what we do and what we see, we serve hospitals just like you. I have a lot of other hospitals that have an average daily census, that's very low, and deal with the volume problems of how do we run a hospital with high cost, because I believe that in your hospital, probably 80 to 85% of all your costs are fixed in nature. You have to have an administrator, and a housekeeping department, and a medical records department, and a CFO, and dietary, and a minimum nursing staff, whether you have one patient or 6. For you having an average daily census of 1 to 2, your costs are very high. You probably wouldn't have to increase your cost to operate if you had 4 more patients every single day. So I know the struggles that you deal with in your small rural hospitals because I see them all the time. One of the things that makes BKD so attractive to me as a small accounting firm, and I hope to you as a small rural community hospital, is that healthcare was the leading industry. 25% of all of the 25% of all the revenues generated within BKD came from healthcare. So healthcare was the largest industry that BKD serviced. That's what made it so important for us as Parish Committee and Fikes, because the only thing that the Waco office of Parish Committee and Fikes did was healthcare. That's it. That's all we do. We work with hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living centers and home health agencies and hospices and physicians. That's pretty much all I know is healthcare. Well, BKD was very similar, where 25% of all of its people worked on healthcare, as compared to manufacturing and real estate, construction, and finance and banking. Healthcare was a big one. So that's why BKD was a really big deal to us as a firm. If you spread out that 25% of business within BKD, we're spread out between over half of it's with hospitals, okay, and hospitals that are generally smaller in size. Healthcare, BKD as a firm does not really have as many clients that are the large A players as it does the small C players. So our specialty became small rural community hospitals. Okay, and then you can see all the other entities as well within BKD. Don't stare at the numbers yet. Don't stare at them. They do not represent you at all. I made them up. I thought they're close to what you might have. I have not seen your audit report. I have not seen your cost report. I'm just going by what I see as very normal and customary in other small community hospitals. But one of the things that I talked about when I was in that conference that Andy and Deborah and Billy saw me at is this is something that we're talking about that is very important for every hospital to know, every critical access hospital especially, and you as a board to know about your hospital. And Andy came to me and said, Deborah, I don't know this. And so let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about it generally, okay? This is what I typically see. I typically see small rural community hospitals that have average gross revenues of about $5 million. When you have an average daily census of 1 to 2 patients and minimal amounts of outpatient services, it's fair to think your gross revenue might be at $5 million. I don't know if that's what yours is. I guessed. Okay? I just put a number up there. And it's very typical that 80% of that is Medicare population. Okay? Medicare or Medicaid. With you being a critical access hospital, all of the services, all of the cost for the services that you provide to your Medicare and Medicaid patients, you're paid cost. So you are guaranteed to break even on 80% of your revenue. Now, that's kind of a weird concept, but I know, without knowing anything more about your hospital, that for all the dollars that you spend, you're breaking even on your Medicare and Medicaid population, regardless of what those numbers are, whether it's 80% of 5 million, 80% of 7 million, 80% of 10 million. I know that that's breaking even. So the management of your hospital then becomes, what are we doing with the other portion of the revenue and services that we provide in our hospital? So what I kind of did is played a guessing game and said, you've got probably 10%, and that's just a common number for me to use, probably 10% of all of the services that you provide are for patients who either do not have the ability to pay, so they would be considered indigent, or they choose not to pay. And we're going to call that bad debt. For you, for purposes of what you do at the board level, you don't care really whether they're bad debt or charity. I can just tell you the services it takes to provide that, you're not getting paid for, so you're losing money. So I allocated 10% of the expenses of the $4 million expenses that I made up and said, we know we're losing 10% of our expenses to bad debt and charity patients, so we know we're losing that money. So there's some number here that is the middle part of our practice that we know is commercial insurers. Those people that have commercial insurance that's not Medicare, not Medicaid. School teachers, the city workers, the people that have insurance that come to your hospital. And so I said, most people in small rural hospitals don't make money on those patients because their costs are probably pretty high. They don't cover the contracts that these commercial payers negotiate. The Blue Cross Blue Shields, the Superiors, whoever all they are, they don't negotiate high enough rates to cover the high costs that you have. So you're losing money. And so I made up an operating loss number. And I'm going to bet your operating loss is much higher than what I have it pegged to be, but I just made that up and said, I bet you're losing money on your hospital operations because most small rural community hospitals do. And then they have tax revenues of some dollar amount that comes in that offsets that loss, and then at the end of the day, you get a profit. And I think it's important for you as a board to know how that split is for your hospital. And then that's when Andy said, I don't know that. I can help you learn all the aspects of how your hospital's operating for purposes of blocking off special payer types and seeing how you make money on those. That helps you become better business managers, if you will. And it helps Andy do a much better job at what he does. So that's one of the things that I showed him that I had at that screen. And some of the things that we talked about in that session were, you have to know what your routine cost per day is and your swing bed cost per day is. And you have to know that that's the amount you get paid every time a Medicare patient walks in the door for an acute or a swing bed day, subacute day, and how much does it fluctuate over the next year. I'm going to give you my very, very basic critical access example of what makes Andy and Deborah's job very difficult. They deal with much bigger numbers than this, but in my example, let's pretend it takes $1 million for your hospital to operate in a year, okay? And in 1 year, you have one patient walk in the door, and that one patient is Medicare. Medicare is going to pay you at the end of the cost report a cost per day of $1 million. And they're going to hand you a check to net out to pay $1 million. And they're going to set the rate for your next year's payments to be $1 million. Okay? And so you will have broken even on your entire business, collected your property taxes, and put the money in the bank and started year 2. Okay? Year 2 rolls along, and this year, it takes you $1 million again to operate your hospital. But this year, you have 2 patients. Okay? 2 patients walk in the door. One patient is Medicare, and one patient is indigent. Will not pay you a dime for your services. You're going to file your claim with Medicare. Medicare's going to send you a check for $1 million because they think it costs you $1 million per day to operate. But at the end of the year, when it comes time to do your cost report, now your rate per day is $1 million divided by 2 patients. It's $500,000. So now what happens, with that one extra patient walking in the door, your volume is now fluctuated enough for you to owe back Medicare $500,000. So you have to be able to manage all your cash all year long so that you can pay back $1 million, and your net loss